And perhaps the star of the show, the most important ingredient, beer. No, I'm good. If it's raw inside, then you are right. Cheese and beer, what could you want? Hey everyone, today we're making beer bread. Now, you may or may not have heard of the recipe that's like 2 ingredients, it's self-rising flour and beer. Well, I was gonna do that with you guys, and then I found a better recipe, so maybe we'll do that recipe another day, but for today, we're making cheddar and dill beer bread. So first things first, my oven is preheating to 375 degrees. You will need a 9x5 loaf pan. Of course, you can use smaller ones if you have smaller ones. Your cook time will just be a little different, but today I'm using a 9x5 loaf pan. If mine looks funky, it's stoneware. And it was a lovely gift from a coworker and his wife. And it's brand new, it only has 2 uses, so it's not quite got its non-stickiness to it yet. So we are definitely going to be oiling this bad boy up. Now, this is an Alton Brown recipe. If you guys watch Food Network, he's on there, but he's been on there for years, and I grew up watching him cook on his show called Good Eats, and he gets into like the scientific stuff about cooking and ingredients. And if you've never watched it, I highly recommend like going to check out some of his old episodes on YouTube. They kind of revamped his show, but I grew up with the old ones. He says to coat the inside of a 9x5 loaf pan with non-stick spray and set aside. I don't have non-stick spray such as Pam, so I'm using light olive oil. Okay, I'm gonna set this aside. Speaking of Alton Brown, he's just one of those celebrity chefs that his recipes are good. So this is my first time making this recipe, but I am trusting that it will be delicious. All right, into a large mixing bowl, we're going to put our dry ingredients. So to start, we're going to need all-purpose flour and whole wheat flour. So this recipe has us measuring flour in ounces, and he also has on his website the option for grams for my non-American folks. And so I don't have a food scale, so I went on King Arthur flour and they came in clutch. 8 ounces of all-purpose or white flour is 1.88 cups. So I'm doing 1 3/4 cups plus 2 tablespoons of white flour. And I am spooning my flour into my measuring cup because the flour will pack down, and when it does that, we end up adding too much. So 1 1/3 cups, sorry, 1 3/4 cups plus 2 tablespoons. Then we have our all-purpose flour. So if I didn't mention it before, we had 8 ounces of all-purpose flour. For whole wheat flour, we are adding 4 ounces. So 4 ounces of whole wheat flour is not the same as white flour because whole wheat flour is heavier by volume. So for our 4 ounces of whole wheat flour, we need 1 cup. Again, spooning it into your measuring cup. To our flour, we are going to add 1 tablespoon of baking powder, 1 teaspoon of white sugar, 1.5 teaspoons of kosher salt, and 1 teaspoon of chopped fresh dill. I do not have fresh dill. I'm using dried dill. And so I understand the ratio. When a recipe calls for fresh herbs and you are using dried herbs, my understanding is that the ratio is for every 1 part fresh herbs, you want to use 1/4 dry herbs. So instead of 1 teaspoon of fresh dill, I'm going to use 1/4 teaspoon of dry dill. So I'm gonna get my whisk and we're just gonna mix all of these ingredients together. we're gonna set that aside. Now for our cheese. We need 4.5 ounces of sharp cheddar cheese grated. So of course you can buy the pre-shredded, but that is not what I'm doing. So this is an 8-ounce block of cheese. I'm going to go with just a little bit more than half of the block. And we're going to shred that up. The perk of shredding your own cheese is you get to eat these little bits that don't get shredded. Good stuff. All right, so all of our cheese is just gonna go right into our bowl with our dry ingredients. And perhaps the star of the show, the most important ingredient, beer. So I'm using an amber ale, and we're just gonna pour it right into our bowl. But the Alton's recipe calls for an ale or a stout. And reading some of the comments on the Food Network website, we're just gonna stir it all together. Stir it until it's just combined, there's no dry flour. Some of the comments on Food Network's website, it sounded like some people were saying it was bitter. So avoid using an IPA, because those are bitter. So yeah, stick with your ales or your stouts. This one that I used is called Independence Harbor Amber Ale. It's just from Aldi, and it seems to be a dupe for Sam Adams. Make sure you scrape down to the bottom, scrape your edges. I am very excited for this bread because I like the taste of cheese and beer together. If you've ever had a beer cheese soup or a beer cheese dip, that's what I'm expecting out of this, and it smells really good. Okay, so once you have your nugget of dough, let's get our bread pan back out here. And you can absolutely just line your bread pan with parchment paper if you want. All right, so press it into your pan so that it's in an even layer so that it cooks evenly. All right, and then it is optional to sprinkle on 1 or 2 tablespoons of sunflower seeds onto your bread. I don't have any, so I'm not going to use them. But once you do that, if you do it, we're going to stick it into our oven for 45 to 55 minutes, or until the internal temperature reads 210 degrees. I'm gonna start with 45 minutes and then we'll check the temperature. Whoa, it looks great. But let's get its temperature, see where we're at. We're going for 210. So you wanna stab it into the middle. Not all the way to the bottom. If you hit the bottom, pull it up a little bit. We are not there yet, we're about 150. So I'm gonna stick it in for 5 more minutes and then we'll take its temperature again. If you're worried that yours is getting a little too dark, you can always place some foil, just tent some foil over the top, which I might do because I like how brown it is right now. So you just take a piece of foil, you just kind of crimp it in the middle, and then I'll place my bread in the oven and just set my foil on top like so. Just like that. $210, that's our goal. All right, we're gonna give it 5 more minutes. I'm slightly worried. I just don't want to overcook it. I'm gonna put my foil back on top too. Take 3. I hope me tenting the foil didn't make a huge difference on it baking. It shouldn't have. I want to poke it from a different angle. You know what? I'm not gonna keep baking it because internal temperatures of breads I think if you go to like King Arthur flour, they say 190 because it's gonna keep cooking on the inside because we have a crust and so there's heat trapped in there. Yeah, I don't want to keep baking it. I think like, nope, I'm good. Sorry, Alton. If it's raw inside, then you were right. You said 45 to 55 minutes and we did 55 minutes. So now we're taking a chance, Abba, taking a chance. We're gonna let this sit in the pan for 10 minutes and then we'll take it out. All right, long 10 minutes. But did I tell you guys how good this smells? It smells great. Cheese and beer, what could you want? All right, let's see if it will pop out. No, okay. I really don't want the bottom to be stuck. I think right now my stoneware is like absorbing the oil that I oil it with. Okay, let's see if that works. Okay, and I don't know if I let it cool more, will it come out more easily? My stoneware experts, leave me a comment. I'm gonna see, instead of like tipping it completely over, because I don't want to rip the bottom off. Whew, okay, steamy under there. Yes. Whew. The bottom's all on the bottom. Ah, so exciting. Okay, let me tell you, I'm very excited that it all came out like this. Now, we were not told to let it cool at all, so that concerns me a little bit because things tend to cut better when they're cool, but there's no time like the present. I'm concerned that because I didn't wait for it to cook to 210 degrees, that because Alton cooked it to 210 degrees, that his was cooked through and that's why he could cut it right away. And not have it fall apart, oh no. I do like the ends, but I'll try a centerpiece for you guys. So it's very hot. One commenter said that it's really good toasted with some butter, and I believe them. What bread isn't good toasted with butter? Well, cheers. It's really nice how there's just cheese, little pockets of cheese all over. And the crust seems, there's a nice crust on it. It's a little crispy. It seems to hold some of the salt. So when you get a piece of crust, there's like a pop of salt. And the beer isn't overpowering. You know it's there, but it's complemented really well with the cheddar. Now, I'll be honest, I'm not tasting a ton of dill right now. And that could be because I used dried instead of fresh. Next time I might add in I might do like half a teaspoon of dry dill if I don't use fresh. Oh, that is so tasty. What I've been dreaming of for this is having it with breakfast. Having some eggs, maybe some corned beef hash. I like dippy eggs with my corned beef hash so you get the runny yolk all mixed with everything. So a couple of dippy eggs, some corned beef hash, and a slice or two of this cheesy beer bread. Ugh, this was a good choice. If you guys would eat this, hit that like button, and then I will leave the recipe link down below for you guys. Go check it out, and then come back and let me know what you guys think of it. I think you guys are gonna be fans. And just a heads up, people who don't drink beer, you don't have to drink beer. You don't have to like to drink beer. Sometimes you like the flavor of beer in food. So don't knock it till you try it. Thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see you in one of my next videos. Just want to jump back in here real quick. I was supposed to let it sit on a cooling rack for 10 to 15 minutes before slicing it after we took it out of the pan. As you can see, we survived. A couple other things. The alcohol bakes off in the bread, so don't worry about there being an alcohol content in it. That will not be an issue. And then, actually no, it's just those two things.